Okay, so we again are here in the InDesign interface, and we're going to create a new file. Again, file, new document, and we're going to make sure again it's print. We're going to turn off facing pages, and let's just click OK. So here we are, and you can see that the margins are right here. And so what if you wanted to change those margins and you wanted to have more white space around here? So this is the way you would do that. You would go to Layout, Margins and Columns. And here we are with our 3 pica space from the top, 3 pica space from the bottom, 3 from the left, and 3 from the right. So if I wanted to change that around, I can change either with this arrow key, and you can see as I do this, everything changes at the same time. And the reason that is because of this link right here. So if you didn't want every margin to be the same, say you wanted your bottom margin to be bigger, you would break this link, and then you could either do the up and down arrows, or you could always click and drag and highlight that and type in the size that you want, like 4p6. And then if you go to the next field, you'll see the change happen down here. So let's click OK. So let's look at typography here, and let's create a type box. I'm going to go to the type tool. I don't need to do type on a path right now. And say I wanted to do a word mark of my name. So I'm going to create a text box right here, and I'm going to type in Darren. And instead of doing my first name and my last name in one text box, I'm going to do them in 2 separate text boxes. So I'm going to create another text box and type in my last name. So a word mark is the display type on your resume. So let's start looking at different aspects of typography. First of all, if I highlight my name here, you can see up here that in the control panel, this is the character formatting controls, and this is the typeface, and this is the type style. This is the point size. This is how big the typeface is. This is the leading. This is the space between one line and another line. And we're just going to stop right there, and we'll look at other stuff later on. So the typeface, or the font, we can come here, we can go down and select different typefaces that we like. Here's a little preview of what they look like on the side. And we go down, and let's just say I want mine to be Futura. And the type style right here, we have light condensed, light oblique. Now oblique is like italic, book, medium, heavy, bold. Let's go with extra bold. All right. The point size right here is 12. Let's make it bigger. We could either come here with this drop down and select a type point size. We could go up and down with the up and down arrows, or we could come in here, and if we knew the point size that we wanted, we could type in that point size and then hit return. Same thing with my last name. It's in a separate text box, and so I'm going to highlight that and change that around. Now there's a different way that we could do this instead of highlighting this. We could select the black pointer. Now what happens when we select the black selection tool is we lose all the typography functions up at the top. But if we select it, which creates these handles and everything, and then go down and select the type tool, now we don't need to highlight this to affect everything within that text box. So there's no highlighting needed, and we can actually see the typeface and see what it looks like. Like if I go like this, hit the up arrow, I can see how it looks like without having to reverse it and make it more difficult for me to see what's going on. Now I've got it up to 60 points for a point size. Now the 72 is the leading. The leading is the space between one line and the next. Well, we don't have another line, so we'll get into this in a little later. But I'm going to change my typeface to say Rockwell. Okay. So we have a sans serif and we have a serif typeface. Now we can do different things to this. We can add more space between letters. That's called tracking. And to do that, we would select the box. We could either highlight this or do my little trick of going to the pointer and then going to the T tool and then coming in here. This field right here is tracking. And if we hit the up arrow, we can see that it spaces out my name, and the down arrow. We can even do negative tracking, so it's really, really tight. Let's change that back to 0. Now the other thing is this is kerning. Kerning is space between individual letter forms. So as we look at this, we can see that the D and the A seem a little bit farther apart because of the geometric structure of these two letter forms than the R and the R. And on the other hand, the A and the R look a little bit farther apart than the R and the R. And the E and the N look farther apart than the R and the E. So we could do one of two things. We could put our cursor in here and then hit the down arrow and move it like that. So, and kind of eyeball it and see that it looks good. The other thing that we could do is we could then again put our cursor here, and the keystroke for this is holding the Option key down, and on the right hand of the keyboard are your arrows, and I could do my left arrow to make it closer, or my right arrow to make them farther apart. Becomes a little bit easier than having to deal with that field. And again, I'm eyeballing it, so it looks pretty good. That space and that space look pretty good, and that space looks pretty good. Maybe I take this and do a little bit of Option left arrow, and kind of eyeball that until I like the space. So there is that. That's one of the tricks that you can do. The other thing is, instead of trying to figure out what point size you want this to be, maybe you want to just see visually how big it will look at different sizes without doing this up and down arrow of the point size. So to do that, we can again go back to the black selection tool, and what I want to do is I want to tighten this box up so it tightens right up to the edge of the letter forms. And to do that, there's many ways to do that. You could go Object, Fitting, Fit Framed Content, or there's also this Option Command C on your keyboard. There's also this over here, Fit Framed Content, this little icon. So let's just hit that and see how it tightens up to the letter form. So if I wanted to make this my last name a lot bigger than my first name, I could go into my point sizes and change the point size, but I prefer to do it this way. I hold the Command and Shift key down and then click on the lower right hand corner. If I hold it and not move it and see that gray box with the W and the H in it, I can actually see this get bigger. So I can, just moving my mouse left and right, and you want to kind of think about a diagonal from the upper left hand corner to the lower right hand corner. As you move your mouse down, you're always kind of going in a slightly diagonal direction. It makes it bigger and smaller, a little bit smoother than if you just kind of go up and down. I'm going up and down as opposed to diagonally. Diagonally goes a little bit slower. So, and just like the text box is very similar to the shape, the circle or the square, that if you let up on the Shift key before you let up on the mouse, you will scale type out of proportion. And this is a huge no-no in design. You never want to scale type out of proportion. So you always hold the Shift key. This is not scaled out of proportion. This is, this isn't, this is, this isn't, this is. You want it not scaled out of proportion. You want it to be nice and clean and straightforward. And so I can just let up on my mouse and then let up on my keyboard. So say I wanted to nestle my name into, say, this area right here. Well, I would do this. I would either do Option Command C, which would be fit frame to content, or I can click this little icon up here and tighten that right up. And then we can drag this and move it around. I'm going to move it around down to here. And this time, let's see if I can grab this upper right-hand corner, Option Command, and then drag this down. And there we go. So now I've got my name nestled into my last name. My first name's nestled into my last name. And let's see what that looks like in preview mode. So we're going to hit the W key. That's cool. Could be a little bit low. I could take my last name and hit the down arrow. There, one notch of the down arrow looks pretty good. I'm looking for this kind of space right here to be equal on both sides, bottom and side. Let's hit the W key again. And there we go. We've created a word mark with two different type boxes